Sound check, 1, 2, 3. Sound check, 1, 2, 3.
Is everybody ready? Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Hamilton Municipal Heritage Committee to order. A reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during our committee meetings. Please note that quorum is present. So as we go through our roll call, if I can just get you to please acknowledge that you're here. Councillor Crutch is absent today. Janice Brown. Here. Karen Burke.
Present.
Graham Carroll.
Present.
Charles Dimitri is away today. Lynn Lundstedt. Present. Robin McKee.
Here.
Timothy Ritchie. And Will Rosart is here. Mr. Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have one added communication item, item 5.1, correspondence from Corbett Land Strategies Incorporated respecting 9511 20 Road West, Hamilton Heritage Committee Report, PED 23136, proactive listings for the Municipal Heritage Register, with a recommendation to be received and referred to the consideration of item 10.1. And we have one added general information and other business, 13.3 Ontario Heritage Conference 2023.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I see Will and Graham.
Okay. And is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. Under our declarations of interest, do we have any declarations of interest today? Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of our minutes of the previous meeting. We have before us the meeting notes from April 28, 2023. May I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
I see Janice and Karen.
And if there's no discussion, is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. Item 5.1 is our communication item, correspondence from Corbett Land Strategies, Inc., respecting 9511 20 Road West in Hamilton. The Hamilton Municipal Heritage Committee Report, PED 23136, proactive listing for the Municipal Heritage Register. So we have a recommendation before us today that is to be received and referred for consideration to item 10.1. Is there any questions of the committee? If not, may I have a motion to approve this item as presented?
I see Janice and Graham.
And as we move to vote, is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. Our staff presentations today, we have item 8.1 is a Tourism Hamilton Visitor Experience Center exhibit, moving forward, looking back, why heritage conservation matters to Hamilton. So we have today Mara Benjamin, Visitor Experience Center Coordinator, and Meredith Leonard, Senior Curator, Learning and Interpretation, are here to give us a presentation. Welcome, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. Through the chair, I am Meredith Leonard, Senior Curator for Learning and Interpretation for Hamilton Civic Museums. And I will just give everyone a very quick overview of this project before I turn it over to Mara, who curated this exhibition that the space is going to be opening with. So the city received just over $492,000 from FedDev Ontario through the Tourism Release Fund to create a mixed-use exhibit and programming space called the Visitor Experience Center. This will be in the former Tourism Hamilton Visitor Center on the ground floor of the Lister Block building. The project has been a partnership between tourism and the Heritage Resource Management sections within the Tourism and Culture Group. And the goals of the project are to create a new accessible attraction and exhibition space, to animate an incredible downtown streetscape, and create some program opportunities for local creators and community partners, as well as a rotating program of exhibitions. The space, as you may have seen if you've been downtown lately, is currently under construction, and we are aiming for a June opening. This exhibition that Mara's curated is going to be our first exhibition in the space, and we're so excited to share it with you this morning. So I'm going to turn it over to Mara to preview the design and the content of the exhibition.
Thank you, Meredith. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us. As Meredith mentioned, this is the inaugural exhibition for the new Visitor Experience Center located in the historic Lister block, and it will be titled Moving Forward, Looking Back, Why Heritage Preservation Matters to Hamilton. This exhibit centers around the idea that when heritage buildings are conserved, all areas of a city can benefit. And we also wanted to recognize the human element of built heritage conservation and the memories that are shared in and around these spaces. The exhibit focuses on 3 case studies to communicate its key themes. Those 3 are the Lister buildings, both the chamber and the present block, as well as the Civic Square and St. Mark's. Through these examples, the exhibit explores the ways in which heritage conservation impacts a city and its citizens from the perspective of social, cultural, environmental, and economic impacts. The exhibit uses texts, photographs, archival fire insurance maps, and interactive prompts which will rotate through the year to communicate with visitors and encourage them to think about heritage conservation, both in Hamilton and in their own communities, because we do get folks from around the world in our tourism center. As Meredith said, this is a joint project between the City of Hamilton's Tourism and Events section and our Heritage Resource Management section, and it is slated to open June 1st of this year. Meredith, did you want to close?
Absolutely. So this is a project with a large team, and Mara and I are only 2 members of that much larger team. So we're definitely sharing credit with a number of our partners. And if there are questions or comments, we're happy to take those back to the rest of the group and the project team to share those with them. But we hope everyone is able to join us when the space is open to check out this really exciting new exhibition space that we're going to be able to examine other important histories and stories from Hamilton's past.
Thank you, Mara and Meredith. Do we have any questions for presenters? So I'll start with Janice, and then we've got Graham.
Thank you. Yes, through the chair, to either Mara or Meredith, thank you very much. Certainly looking forward to this. Not totally understanding, but certainly will once we are engaged and we can actually take part and see it. But I'm going to the Lister at this point in time. How is this going to be a permanent exhibition, or is it going to rotate? Will it change, and will it be open 6-7 days a week? Or will there be only certain times that you can get in to take part in this? Thank you.
Through the chair, it will be open during all open hours of the Visitor Experience Center. So that is currently Tuesdays through Saturdays from 10 a.m. through 4 p.m. It will be a free access exhibit for anyone that comes into the space. And this is just the first of many rotating exhibits. It will run until the end of this year in December, and we will have hopefully 2 exhibits per year moving forward.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Graham.
Yeah, my question is kind of on the content. You show Civic Square, then you say when heritage buildings are conserved, everyone wins. There is no remnant of Civic Square left. So how is it conserved?
That is an excellent question. That is an example we chose to include to show what might happen if those heritage buildings are not conserved and how that impacts the community. We wanted to show both sides of heritage conservation and encourage folks to really think about the buildings in their own communities and how they can hopefully work to conserve them. And that will all be explored in depth in the exhibit.
Thank you.
Do we have any other first-time speakers before Janice asks the second question? So Will first, and then Janice.
I just want to pass on a comment. In the 175 video display, instead of talking generally about the Italian internment from World War II, they put every name on the site. And I don't think that was necessary. And I hope you're not going to do the same. And that's my comment.
Perhaps Meredith can address this, as I was not involved with the 175 project.
Through the chair, thank you for the question. Could you let me know exactly which part of the 175 website was this on, the timeline exhibition? Just a little clarification so I can direct your comment appropriately to our staff.
Yeah, the timeline.
Okay, perfect. I will inquire on that. I'm not the staff member responsible for that particular exhibition, but I will look into that and advise them of your comment. Thank you.
Janice?
Yes, through the chair to Meredith and or Mara, or both. St. Mark's, you put St. Mark's on, so St. Mark's is scheduled to open, we hope, 2024. We're a little bit behind schedule. You talk about exhibits. That is somewhat confusing for me because I understood that this was to be an event space and a community hub. So will those exhibits at St. Mark's be a little different or be scheduled at different times in the event that somebody else may want to rent that space and host whatever it is they might want to do? Thank you.
Through the chair, the St. Mark's section within our exhibit in the Lister block is looking at heritage conservation in action and how that can look very different depending on the building. We will still include community space and rental space within the Visitor Experience Center. It's divided into 3 areas, and one of which is exclusively for events, programs, workshops, and community use. I am not part of the team that's working on St. Mark's renovation, so I don't know what the full image of that is going to look like at this time.
Thank you for that. I guess I was confused, and your answer confused me a little bit more because I thought that you were talking about St. Mark's in St. Mark's, but you're saying there's going to be an exhibit about St. Mark's at the Lister? Thank you.
St. Mark's is one of the 3 case studies that we look at in this inaugural exhibit.
Case studies at the Lister?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Thank you. Just to be sure.
Yes, sorry about the confusion.
Are there any other questions for our presenters? Go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, sorry.
Through the chair, I just wanted to, on behalf of Heritage Planning staff, thank our colleagues in Tourism and Culture for bringing this exhibit forward. I know we've had a lot of conversations over the years about how to better push the mark in terms of public education, talking about why heritage conservation matters, and this is a really important exhibit that we're really excited to see launch.
Will you have a question? Go ahead.
Sorry. That was a good point, Alyssa, because education is one of the most important things that goes with heritage conservation. Now, they say it's opening on June the 1st, and they're having some opening. What time is it at?
Through the chair, the Tourism Center is scheduled to open the week of June the 1st with our regular hours. At this time, we're hoping that we can open May 30th, in fact, so a few days early, and that will be our regular Visitor Experience Center hours, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. We are still in the process of planning a larger celebration of this new space, and the date for that has not yet been finalized.
I would appreciate that we hear about it, the committee members. I believe most of them would be interested.
If there's no other questions, thank you again for that presentation, and thank you for the experience. I think we're all looking forward to being able to see it and the documentation of how municipal heritage is important. And so if we can get a mover and a seconder to receive that presentation.
I see Will and Graham.
And is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. Thank you very much. We now move on to our item 8.2, which is our heritage permit application HP 2023-019 under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act for the construction of a rear detached accessory structure at 32 John Street East in Flamborough, PED 23126 in Ward 15. We have Lisa Christie here to give a presentation on the report.
Hi everyone, Lisa Christie, Cultural Heritage Planner with the City of Hamilton. I'll be presenting staff report PED 23126 regarding heritage permit HP 2023-019 for 32 John Street East in Flamborough. So this heritage permit is for the property located at 32 John Street East within the Mill Street Heritage Conservation District. And the heritage permit proposal includes the construction of a new detached accessory structure in the rear of the property for use as garage and secondary dwelling. It will feature a front gable roof, board and matten cladding, and on the north elevation, 2 ground floor garage doors and windows in the second story. This permit will also require the installation of a new gravel driveway along the east side of the property. So this is an overall site plan of the property. So the subject property is outlined in blue, and the proposed location of the new garage is outlined in red. Outlined in yellow is the location of the new driveway. So you'll see that it's located partially behind the existing house, and the location has some visibility from the public right-of-way. But I will note this is a standard location for many garages within this district, located towards the rear of the property. So on April 18th, 2023, the application appeared before the Heritage Permit Review Subcommittee, and HPRS was supportive of the proposal and staff's recommended conditions. So here we have another overall site plan. John Street East is towards the left of the screen there, and then the street and site features a lot of large trees and mature gardens, which will provide some partial coverage of the new garage, especially from the east and west approach to the property. So here we have some more existing conditions. So presently the area proposed for the driveway is an area of grassed area between the houses. It is depressed, so it is lower and lower than both foundations, so the water drains from both houses towards the space between. And then the mature trees at the rear of the lot will remain, and one garage door will be fully visible from this laneway, which is evident in this rendering of the design. So you'll see that the garage just kind of peeks out the side there. I'll also note that the newer addition on the left side of the house will partially cover the garage, as well as some of the existing shrubbery will help shield the view of it. So this is the west elevation. This is the only elevation that will be visible from the public right-of-way. The garage doors are proposed to be custom made to look like typical coach house doors, and the final details are proposed to be submitted to staff. The central windows are proposed to be pointed arch windows. Again, final details to be submitted to staff, but they're hoping that it would emulate the existing arched window in their front gable. From the south elevation, not visible from the public right-of-way, but we can see that they're proposing asphalt shingles, which is similar to what's existing on the Heritage House. And then north and east elevation, both of these are not visible from the public right-of-way, but from these images we can see that the board and batten style is consistent throughout the structure, and the 2 pointed arch windows are proposed for the gable on the rear as well. So staff consider the design to be compatible with the guidelines laid out in the Mill Street District Plan. The proposed design and materials incorporate features that are sympathetic to the character of the area. It's located towards the rear of the property, and it respects the district guidelines that new buildings not attempt to replicate historical facades. So staff are recommending that the heritage permit application be approved, subject to the approval of any required Planning Act applications and the following 3 conditions. So the final details regarding windows, garage doors, siding, and roofing material to be submitted to staff for approval. Minor changes to be submitted to staff for review and approval, and a 3-year completion timeline, as they do need some building permits to complete the work. And thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Lisa. Do we have any questions, Tim? Okay. Must have been a good presentation, no questions. So in that case, may I have a mover and a seconder to receive the presentation? And then we'll move on to the report.
I see Karen and Robin.
That was Lynn. Lynn.
Oh, sorry.
And as we move to vote on receiving the presentation, is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. We now move on to the report. May I have a mover and a seconder to put forward the recommendations on the floor?
Graham and Lynn.
Okay. And are there any questions in regards to those recommendations? If not, as we move to vote, is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. Moving on to item 8.3 is the recommendation to designate 3 Main Street Dundas under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, PED 23125, in Ward 13. We have today Meg Oldfield here to give a presentation on the report. Welcome, Meg.
Thank you for having me. Just one moment while I share my screen. Oh, okay. Okay, perfect, thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Meg Oldfield. I am one of the 2 new cultural heritage planning technicians here with the planning department. And today I will be presenting PED report 23125, which recommends that the property at 3 Main Street be designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. So as you can see here, the building is located near the corner of King Street East and Main Street in downtown Dundas. So the property is comprised of a 2-story brick building constructed circa 1875. The property was listed on the Municipal Heritage Register in September of 2022 and was added to staff's designation work plan as part of the Downtown Dundas Built Heritage Inventory Project. Following consultation with the property owner, staff were granted permission to enter the property, which included the interior, for a site visit in November of 2022. In April of 2023, the property owner was provided a copy of the Cultural Heritage Assessment Report, and staff explained the scope of the proposed designation. Staff have since then had further correspondence with the owner, who is supportive of the Part 4 designation. So in preparation for this report, staff conducted a site visit, as I mentioned. A cultural heritage assessment report of the property was drafted by staff. It's attached as Appendix C to this report, which includes a historical research and a cultural heritage evaluation of the property using Ontario Regulation 906. Staff also drafted a statement of cultural heritage value or interest, which is attached as Appendix B. Additionally, as I mentioned, staff have been in contact with the property owner to explain the proposed designation and the financial incentives available for eligible heritage conservation and adaptive reuse once the property is designated. So staff have determined that the property meets 6 of the 9 criteria contained in Ontario Regulation 906. I will now outline the cultural heritage value of the property. So the property is a representative example of the Second Empire style of architecture, as demonstrated by its mansard roof with dormer windows, cupola, polychromatic hexagonal slate tiles, cut stone window lintels, and brick masonry lintels. It is also demonstrative of the Renaissance Revival style of architecture, as demonstrated by its carved bracketed eaves, second-story window hoods made of galvanized sheet metal with decorative rosettes, galvanized sheet metal brackets, and molded cornices. It is also a rare and early example of the architectural use of galvanized sheet metal for exterior elements, in this case window hoods in Dundas. The property also displays a high degree of craftsmanship in the form of the aforementioned window hoods, polychromatic hexagonal slate tile roof, and bracketed eaves. The property has a direct historical association with lawyer Brighton Bath Osler, who was the son of prominent Dundas minister Featherstone Lake Osler. He was the Crown Attorney of Wentworth between 1874 and 1880, and in 1882 formed the law firm of Osler, Harcourt, and Hoskins, which is still in operation today. In 1885, Brighton Bath Osler was selected as one of the 4 prosecuting attorneys in the treason trial of Louis Riel. The property also has direct historical association with Valley Lodge Number 100, who operated out of the building for nearly 150 years. Valley Lodge Number 100 was formed in 1858 and has included prominent members of the Dundas community, including John Gartshore, the manufacturer and owner of the Dundas Iron Foundry, as well as a former mayor and Brigadier General Sir Alexander, Sir Alexander Bertram. The contextual value of the property helps define the historic character of Main Street and Dundas, serving as a physical reminder of the early commercial success of the community. The property is physically, historically, and visually linked to its surroundings, forming the block of buildings that makes up 2 King Street East to 15 Main Street. And the property is considered to be a local landmark due to its prominent location and central cupola. So a summary of the Statement of Cultural Heritage Value or Interest. The property at 3 Main Street is comprised of a 2-story brick building constructed circa 1875. The design of the building is representative of the Second Empire and Renaissance Revival styles of architecture. It is a rare and early example of the architectural use of galvanized iron for decorative exterior elements, in this case window hoods, and the property displays a high degree of craftsmanship in the form of said window hoods, its mansard roof, and wooden brackets. The property at 3 Main Street is associated with lawyer Brighton Bath Osler, as well as Valley Lodge Number 100, who occupied the building for nearly 150 years. And the property helps define the historic downtown Dundas streetscape and is visually, historically, and physically linked to its surroundings, and is also a local landmark. This is a summary of the Statement of Cultural Heritage Value or Interest, the full version of which is attached to the report. So this is just a brief outline of the heritage attributes. Important to the conservation of 3 Main Street is the south facade as well as the roof line. Please note that staff have not identified any interior features relevant to the designation. Also important to the conservation of 3 Main Street is its location fronting onto Main Street and its prominent central cupola. Before I get into any questions, I would just like to thank Ann Gillespie, who provided a lot of relevant information for this report, including an extensive report on the history of galvanized sheet metal for decorative exterior elements, as well as the property owner, who has been very open about letting staff visit and is very interested in the designation, and the Dundas Museum and Archives, who was very helpful when providing historical background research. With that said, are there any questions?
Do we have any questions from comments? Oh, go ahead, Graham. Graham first, and then Janice.
I just wanted to thank you for the great job you did. Really appreciate it. Easy to understand and follow, which is important when you got a document that's so long. You summarized it beautiful. Thank you.
And through the chair, I just want to say this is a good news story, and really looking forward to another shopping experience in Dundas. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, may I have a mover and a seconder to receive the presentation?
See Graham and Lynn.
And as we move to vote, is there anyone opposed to receiving the presentation? Seeing none, that item is carried, and we move on to the report. So we have before us the recommendations that Meg outlined. If there's no questions or comments in regards to those recommendations, may I have a mover and a seconder to put those recommendations on the floor?
Janice and Graham.
Okay, and if there's no questions, and is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. So our first request for designation under Bill 23.
Well, through the chair, I'll just note it's been so great to have Meg on board and transition to the new role, because this work originally started when she was an intern and focusing on Dundas properties, so it's come full circle.
let's just say thank you to everyone for all that work. So we now move on to our consent items. We have several consent items under 9.1, 9.2. Are there any questions in regards to those items? If not, may I have a mover and a seconder to receive?
I see Karen and Graham.
And is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, those items are carried. Under our discussion items, 10.1, we have our monthly report on proactive listings for the Municipal Heritage Register, April 2023, PED 231001, wards 3 and 11. So there are recommendations before us. Is there any questions? Go ahead, Melissa.
Through the chair, there was also the communication that was forwarded to this item for your attention as well.
So if I can have a mover and a seconder to put the recommendations on the floor, and then we can take any questions or comments from the committee.
I see Graham.
Do we have a seconder?
And
Oh, go
Janice.
ahead, Janice. Is there any questions in regards to this item and the recommendations before us? So that staff be directed to list the following properties on the Municipal Heritage Register as non-designated properties that council believes to be of cultural heritage value or interest, as outlined in report PED 23136 in accordance with section 27 of the Ontario Heritage Act. These properties are 9575 20 Road West, Glanbrook, and Ward 11, 9511 20 Road West, Glanbrook, Ward 11. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. And we now move on to our buildings and landscapes. So if I can get a speakers list started with anyone that would like to provide their updates on properties. Karen? Do we have any other updates? Graham? Okay, and just while we go through, is there any intentions for adding or deleting from the list today? Seeing none? Okay, so go ahead, Karen.
Thank you. I have one update on a property that's on the list. It's 64 Hat Street in Dundas, and it was sold to Forge and Foster 6 years ago, and they've relisted it for sale now. So they paid $4.1 million, and they're asking $14 million. So I don't think it's at risk, but it's just a new development. And so it stays, I would recommend, in the same area of the list, which is yellow, I think. And then is now an appropriate time just to mention another one that's come up for sale, or should I wait until after we've gone through the properties of interest? Okay, all right, so I just had one other to mention. So there is a property in Dundas. It's basically across the street from the one we just looked at on Main Street, a little bit further south, 26 Main Street. And Matt, I'm not sure if you got that. I just sent you a picture of it, and just out of interest if you have it. Okay, no problem. But it's a lovely old building. It's a duplex, and half of it's for sale. So I don't think it's at risk of demolition. I just thought I'd bring it to the attention because I looked it up on the inventory list, or that mapping, and I briefly discussed this with Alyssa just before the meeting, but so those two, the one half that's for sale and the other half, are on the inventory, and there's two essentially, in my mind, identical buildings just along the same street, and so just wondered whether, suggest that they could be added to the inventory as well, so or at least take a look at it for consideration. So.
Through the chair, yeah, so further to our conversation, happy to take a look, and they do appear to be basically the same era, same style of semi-detached, so we can add those to the inventory as well.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you, Karen. Go ahead, Graham.
Hey, just a quick little, hopefully good news story about St. Giles and their upkeep. I was talking with the Kindred Works people, and they're looking at bringing barricades on the site to help better protect it. They have new cameras in that are monitored, and the property manager they have right now is really keeping the litter neat and tidy, and a lot less fear of stuff on the property. So it's hopefully taking a turn for the better, at least upkeep and keeping the community happy.
No, that's definitely good news. Will, did you have an update?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add, is something happening with St. Giles? I may have missed something.
No, just
Well, when you said Kinderworks, I thought that was the company.
Kindred Works is the United Church of Canada's property
Development
section.
company.
Yes, and they have a whole new staff there, 3 new directors, and
Yeah.
they're in transition.
Okay, no, that's great. Any other updates before we move on to our next item? So may I have a motion
Robin,
to?
sorry, Robin would like to
Oh, Robin,
provide an update.
sorry, Robin. Go ahead, Robin.
I sent in a photograph of Park Street. The windows are non-existent, and they've been that way for some time. Thank you.
It's at the corner of Cannon and Park.
East side.
Correct.
The house burned at one time.
Robin, do you happen to have the address of that property?
Is it 120? Park Street North.
It's on the southeast corner.
Yes.
Through the chair, yes, I do believe it's 120 Park Street North. Robin, could you confirm, is that already on this is on the list?
Yes, it
It's
is.
an update? Okay, okay.
Yeah, it's on the list. It's an update. I've been watching it for a couple of years now, and those windows have never been replaced. And you've sent out property people to get it fixed. They've also stopped the people from getting in from the back. They've added more security.
And through the chair, just some context, if I remember correctly, this was subject to a fire, so it was in a state of repair. I do believe there are still active building permits, but it has been a while since it's come back up at this committee, so staff will follow up to confirm the status.
Thank you, Alyssa. Any other updates, Robin, or was that all? Okay, sounds good. May I have a motion to receive the updates? Mover and a
see
seconder?
Graham and Lynn.
And is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. Moving on to 13.2, we have an item, Doors Open Hamilton 2023 update. So I ask if Graham and Janice want to make comment, or if any of our other members want to talk about their experiences with Doors Open. Well, maybe we'll start with Graham.
Yeah, on the Saturday morning, I went down to assist at the Hamilton Heritage Committee table at St. Lawrence the Martyr Church on Picton Street. We had a lot of people stop by, pick up word searches and coloring books. A lot of people toured the church itself. It was an amazing amount of people that came through in the time I was there. But the best group we had come through, memorable, is a group of sketchers. They would go to different sites and spend 2 hours and do a nice sketch. And they were quite enthusiastic and very friendly and showed us their work. It was quite nice. And after I finished there, I went over to the gas works on Park Street and spent the afternoon greeting people coming in. We had about 100 people come in. So it was a good turnout. A lot of them were really interested in the site, and it was a very interesting day, I got to say that.
And through the chair, to all of you, I spent the afternoon at St. Lawrence, and I must admit it brought back a lot of very good memories. My sister was married there, and I was her maid of honor, so I knew that church well. And on the other end of it, my dad's funeral was there, so it was very memorable. But what was so impressive, most of the people that I dealt with in the afternoon were from out of town, and they were absolutely so impressed, not only with the church, which they thought was absolutely beautiful, but they were totally impressed with Hamilton. And I thought that that was a really good news story. lovely people. Some of them I even remember from last year when we manned the desk at the Lister, so that was good to see. And like Graham said, the coloring books and the word searches are a real hit with people, whether they're old, young, or otherwise. And several of them went out. And then special thanks to Alyssa for having St. Lawrence on as a site, but she also did for us an overview of the effects of Bill 23. So while we were sitting there, we were also handing out this document, and most people have no idea of what's coming ahead as far as heritage is concerned. So they were very appreciative to get that extra knowledge. So all in all, it was a beautiful day. You couldn't ask for a better day. And I think Alyssa told me we had 450 people come through over the weekend, which is amazing. And they were on for what, a day and almost a half, because you started after church on Sunday. And then I do understand that Doors Open had over 12,000 visitors during the weekend. So that's a good news story for Doors Open. And I do know that the theme next year is music. And I've always said Hamilton should be the Nashville of the North. So that should be a good one coming forward. Alyssa, you're laughing at me. It's true. Thank you very much.
And just to add a note to what Jana said about the travelers, we heard comments, a lot of Niagara Falls, Toronto, Etobicoke, Richmond Hill, Vaughan, Kitchener-Waterloo, Newmarket. So there was Brantford. There was a lot of people traveling into the city for that event. Will and then Robin.
As far as St. Lawrence's and Facebook, there were a number of very positive comments on how beautiful the church is, which it is. Yeah. And we're fortunate that church and the Mass have lasted all these years. And I think that's due to a lot of citizen involvement, so, of members. So.
Robin, you're next.
Akmar had over 1,500 people come through for the 2 days. And an announcement that came out of that is that there's going to be an Akmar exhibit on the second floor of City Hall, sometime in June.
That's a very good update. Oh, Robin, Will was just wanting to ask what type of exhibit will it be?
Art exhibit. With Elizabeth Suhana.
No, that's great. Is there anyone else that want to add any comments for Doors Open? If not, may I have a motion to receive that update?
I see Graham and Karen.
And anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. And we now move on to item 13.3, which is the Ontario Heritage Conference 2023. So Alyssa Golden will introduce this item.
Thanks. So through the chair, we have had conversations about not knowing when we could confirm members for the upcoming June Ontario Heritage Conference. At this point, we know that this committee will be in place at least next month, so it makes sense to have formal nominations to select the folks who do want to attend. I do understand that we've had 4 people present interest in attending, and I believe maybe Alyssa will go through that. So if there's any questions in terms of the extent of what would be covered, happy to answer that. But in the past, cover registration, accommodation, and transportation, and hoping to have a good turnout at the conference this year.
So we have the following members who advise the clerk that they wish to attend the conference. We have Lynn Lundstead, Will Rosart, Graham Carroll, and myself. Are there any members who wish to be considered to attend the conference or have their names removed from consideration?
How many can go?
Pardon? We're just taking interest now, Will, so.
Oh, side.
Okay. Go ahead.
So then we just need a motion to approve sending those members. I see Janice and Karen.
And is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. Are there any other updates from staff?
Yeah, thanks, through the chair. So as you may have heard during Meg's presentation, that she's one of the successful applicants for the 2 new temporary planning technician positions. So Meg's official first day in that role was just this past Monday, May 15th. We are also happy to welcome Scott Dickinson over. He's currently in tourism and culture within the Hamilton Civic Museum section. He'll be starting with us on June 5th, so looking forward to introducing you to him once he's on board. And in a sad note, we will be losing Chloe, unfortunately. But she is staying within the organization. She's taking a very exciting new role within our planning division. So we're happy to still have her on board and have that institutional knowledge. But we have just recently posted for her vacancy, so that is up. Tell your friends. Looking forward to seeing a lot of interesting applicants coming through. And I don't know if Chloe wants to say anything.
Sure, through the chair. First, I wanted to just thank all the committee members for giving me a warm welcome a couple years ago and for all of your hard work over the past 2 years and into the future. In terms of my new role, I'm moving over to Sustainable Communities, which is the policy planning group, and I'll be working on some exciting city-initiated projects. So I'll still be on the same floor as cultural heritage team, so we'll have some good chats, I'm sure.
Through the chair, I am going to miss you, Chloe. You were so organized. You were doing things before I even thought of them, and I just can't say enough about your professionalism, your knowledge, and I'm really sorry to see you go, but I will keep you informed of all good concerts.
Thanks, Janice.
I mean, the good thing is she's not really leaving. She's just, we can still hunt her down. So we wish you the best of luck, Chloe, and congratulations, Meg, on the new appointment. So I'm sure there's lots of work for you waiting for you. Do we have any other new business items today? Oh, go ahead, Robin.
Through the chair, just a question. Is there a facade grant for non-designated properties, businesses?
Through the chair, yes, Robin, there are a number of financial incentives in addition to our Heritage Grant and Loan programs that are available. The full scope of them are outlined on investinhamilton.ca, but there are a number that speak to, building rehabilitation. There's tax increment financing, facade improvements. So if there's specific programs that you're maybe interested in learning more about, I'd be happy to put you in touch with the folks who run those programs.
Yeah, what I'm looking for is just a facade cleanup of the properties on James Street North. A lot of graffiti, and a lot of them need a paint job. If we're going to bring people into the decor, should look good.
Through the chair, if there are some concerns in terms of property standards and existing graffiti, it'd be helpful to know if those are things we should maybe point towards our municipal law enforcement staff. So if you wanted to connect with me offline, Robin, I'd be happy to chat further.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Is there any other new business items? If not, may I have a motion to adjourn today?
I see Lynn and Graham.
Is there anyone opposed to adjourning? Seeing none, that item is carried. So thank you, everyone, and our next meeting is going